Yeah, tonight is a special treat because Doug Grad is a literary agent. So, first, he started out as an editor for 22 years at imprints of Simon and Schuster, Random House, Penguin, and Harper Collins. So, there's some creds going on there. He acquired and edited numerous bestsellers in fiction and nonfiction, including the first two New York Times best-selling novels of historical fiction by Jeff Sherraw. We know about that. Well, some of us who have read that know about that. Over the years, Doug has worked with generals and admirals, war heroes, historians, politicians, astronauts, sports stars, coaches, comedians, mobsters, cops, journalists, musicians, truckers, cowboys, and Native Americans, among others. In 2008, Doug opened his own literary agency, and he sold a wide range of fiction and nonfiction to Big Five publishers, as well as mid-sized and small publishing houses. His authors have hit the New York Times bestseller list, won prestigious awards, and been critically acclaimed. Doug is married to a librarian, and we love librarians, recently moved to Salem, Mass. From Brooklyn, New York, and they have a son, Harry. Doug, thank you so much for showing up tonight.
Well, you're very welcome, Dale. I didn't know that you studied writing under Stephen King. That's pretty cool.
He came back as writer in residence for 1 year in my junior year, and I ran down to the office and signed up for every class I could get from him. So, and we're sitting in the man's living room while he's editing out, our stories, and I go, "This is pretty cool."
That's very cool. My high school creative writing teacher was a guy named Frank McCourt.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. Now, of course, he was nobody then. He was just Mr. McCourt, the high school.
That was before Angela's Ashes, right?
Before Angela's Ashes. And he used to tell us all these stories in class. And we, would say, "Hey, Mr. McCourt, those are really good stories. You should write a book one day.
You should write these down."
Because, we're 17 years old and we think we know everything. And he would just get this very sad look on his face. And he would say, "I'm trying, lads. I'm trying.
I'm trying. It's too hard."
Yeah. Well,
remember in the old days.
It took him 20 years to find the right voice to tell that story.
I read that, and I have not read anything else he's written.
Well, he wrote 3 books: Angela's Ashes, Tis, and Teacher Man.
Tis,
I haven't read Tis, but I've read Teacher Man because, of course, that's about his high school teaching years, and I wanted to see if I was mentioned in the book, which I was not.
Oh, how dare he?
I should return it.
Well, with teachers like that, they do inspire. They teach the craft, they teach the love, they teach the passion, and we have to move on from that and pass that torch on to others. And I think you've done a spectacular job of doing that.
Thank you.
So I was going to ask, how did you get here? And I think that answers quite a bit of it.
Well, it's funny. I actually started out in my adult life to be an actor. And you know how stable a profession acting is. So I went into publishing because it's so lucrative.
Yeah, because there's so much more money.
Yes. So basically, I had done a couple of shows after college. And I was living with my parents in, our apartment in Queens. And I was just doing temp work, and I worked at like an insurance company and a Wall Street firm and an ad agency.
And answering cattle calls by the dozen.
Well, I think I had seen the writing on the wall, and I don't mean the bathroom wall. And the temp agency sent me to Simon and Schuster, and I walked in to the office, and I'm like, "Hey, Rockefeller Center, not bad. Books, I love books. Wait, there's a whole industry. Books don't just magically appear on the shelves in the store."
Yeah.
And the light bulb went off on my, above my head. And I thought, this could be something. And the guy I was working for was Michael Korda. Michael Korda was the sort of celebrity editor-in-chief of Simon and Schuster from about 1959 up until fairly recently. He just retired within the last 10 years, let's say. And like Frank McCourt, was one of these guys who was just so inspirational. He made you want to come to work each day just because it seemed so much fun and so interesting. So he was
important.
And very important. He was working with Larry McMurtry at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm typing up editorial notes for Larry McMurtry. I'm like, well, how great is this?
Yeah.
So I decided then that I wanted to become a book editor. And it took me about 6 months because those positions do not open up very often. But I told the temp agency, keep sending me back to Simon and Schuster. And the next summer, I got a position to be the assistant to the editorial director of Pocketbooks, which was the paperback division. And that really was what started my career, and over the years, I got promoted. I moved to other companies, other jobs, and, learned how to edit from some very good editors. And this is a business where you learn by watching and by sort of imitating what your bosses are teaching. So I got kind of lucky when I moved on to Ballantine, because I had been doing Westerns of all things, and what does a guy from Queens know about doing Westerns? My comment at the time was, the only thing I know about horses is, from when I've been to the track, and that was it. So, I translated that on my resume to historical fiction, because it sounds better than Western.
Yes, yeah.
And then my first day, my new boss dumped a 1,200-page manuscript in my lap, and said, here, read this, and then dropped another book on top of that. Read this one first. So the one on the top was The Killer Angels by Michael Schnarer.
Oh, man.
Yeah, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning book. And the big manuscript was Gods and Generals by Jeff Sharer.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
I kind of stepped in it and got really lucky. Came out smelling like a rose, as they say. And Jeff now, after, oh God, this is nearly 30 years, 28 years, Jeff's one of my clients. So that's pretty cool.
Fantastic. Yeah. Did you work with Michael?
No, he had passed away before I got involved with Jeff. And in fact, a little story for everybody out there, his book won the Pulitzer Prize, and it sold no copies because it was about the Battle of Gettysburg.
Are
and
you
it came out
kidding?
right after the Vietnam War ended, and nobody wanted to read a war book.
What about after the movie?
When the movie came out, it became a #1 New York Times.
Then it went out, because movie,
But the movie was 92, I want to say.
Yeah,
and I think Michael Schara had died in 88. So he
never
got to
see it. That's a shame. Success.
Yeah. So Jeff has sort of taken that
the mantle,
and run with it. 15 New York Times bestsellers and counting.
Oh, boy. Wonderful. So you're editing, and years go by, and you're like, I really like this, but I want to strike out on my own.
That's pretty close. I think to be a little more accurate, the business has changed,
Yeah.
and
boy, yeah.
It's it changed a lot from 1986 to 1996, and from then till now. I mean, it's almost unrecognizable. When I came in, it was like it was an office full of IBM Selectrics. Everybody had typewriters. The phone rang all the time. It was noisy. People were shouting down the hall. It was kind of like if you saw, His Girl Friday and Scene in the Newsroom, and everybody's yelling and screaming and the phones are ringing, or Mad Men. It was kind of like that. And not too long ago, I was in an office for a meeting. This is pre-pandemic, of course. And after I came out of the meeting, I said to the editor, something's different about this place. And he said, oh, yeah, we got a paint job. I said, no. I know what it is. The phone hasn't rung the entire hour and a half that I've been. And he's like, oh, yeah, the phone never rings anymore. Everything's on email. Wow. So anyway, as the technology changed, the business changed, it became more corporate. The job of an editor became less appealing to me, especially once I got married and had kids, because you can't edit in the office. So that meant you're editing at nights, on the weekends, on holidays, and on vacations. And, there was that Christmas Eve where my wife buzzed from downstairs in the apartment building, and she said, if you're not downstairs in 5 minutes, I'm taking the kids and I'm going to my mother's house without you. And I'm like,
Oh,
maybe I need to rethink this, because
yeah.
what was I doing? I was editing a manuscript on Christmas Eve. And so I took it with me and continued to edit it at my mother-in-law's house.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how many Thanksgivings and Labor Days and Memorial Days I spent with a manuscript and a pencil. And I mean, nobody does it that way anymore. It's all on computer.
Yeah.
But it became exhausting. As I was now in my mid 40s, I thought, this is a young man's game or young woman's game. I can't do it. So a lot of people say, well, when you're in corporate publishing, you always have to have an exit strategy
Yep.
because, you never know what's going to happen. Like, for instance, Penguin Random House just laid off a ton of people. And I shouldn't say laid off, because that to me implies that they're going to hire them back. They got rid of them.
Downsized.
Don't let the door hit you.
Canned.
Ice.
Set fire
wax.
to.
Yes. So in the back of my mind, I always thought, maybe being an agent would be the way to go. They always seem to be having more fun and making more money. Well, I'm definitely having more fun.
Yeah, 15% of a big seller is pretty good.
It is, so my becoming an agent coincided with advances dropping. So my timing was not great.
Yeah, still, it's a bold move to hang your shingle out into something like that, striking out into new territory. But you did have connections.
I had a ton of connections. I worked with everybody. That was sort of the beauty of working at 4 publishers. There are plenty of people I know who spend their entire career at one house, which means they don't get to meet anybody. They don't know people at the other houses, except for who you run into at a conference or what have you. But I not only knew a lot of agents, I knew a lot of editors and assistants and publishers and editorial directors and heads of sales and marketing.
Excellent.
So I had a lot of people that I could call on as resources and ask questions of, and it really helped me to jumpstart my agenting career.
And you've done pretty well for yourself since.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Now, also, haven't you branched out into writing your own things now and putting those out?
Well, I haven't put them out yet, but I have.
Waiting for a good agent.
Yeah, what do they say? An agent who has himself as a client.
A fool for a client?
Fool client.
I don't think so. Paula Munier's done pretty well. We've had her on the program before, so.
Maybe I'll ask Paula to represent.
Yeah, put a dog in it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one. But
they told Daniel Palmer that. They said put a dog in it because people like dogs and they sell more. So he's like, okay. So he wrote a dog into his book.
Oh, what the hell? I'll make a dog the main character.
Exactly. Now, talking or non-talking? I
started writing a mystery novel, and as you know, I showed it around at the last New England Crime Bake, and what was fascinating was sort of the mixed reaction that I got. Everybody said, "Oh, wow, you're a good writer," and a lot of people said, "It's taking you too long to get started. Get to the story. Why are we getting all this background information?"
Right.
And having edited literally hundreds of books, right? It's easy for me to tell somebody else to do, and it's very hard to see it in my own work. So I understand that everybody out there who's writing, you need an impartial person to read your stuff, not your friends, not your
people who don't care about your opinion, who will tell you the blunt truth, which
right.
will hurt.
It will hurt, but it will also make you a better writer.
Right.
So I haven't done a whole lot of work on it since November, and it's just because I've been so busy. But busy's good.
Busy's good. Busy pays the bills.
Busy pays the bills, and I'm hoping to get back to it. So I'll have a few more chapters to show by the next Crime Bake.
Yeah, well, we'll see you at Crime Bake, and that's always pumps me up. Going to that conference just gets you so excited about it. You come back. You spend a day or two recovering, and then you get right back to work, and then boom, with all those creative juices that have been flowing and marinating over that weekend.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've got a bunch of questions here, so I'm going to start reading some of these off. Frank wants to know if any writers use speech recognition software. I'm going to say, yeah, there's out there. There's Dragon, Naturally Speaking. There's a bunch of others. Uh,
Yes, people use it, but I think that it's okay. It's not great. I have a writer, I have an author who does that, and a lot of the time she'll send me, a chapter for my feedback, and some of it's just unreadable. And I know what she's trying to say,
but
but
she's not actually going over it afterwards.
well, she's a little impatient, shall we say.
Ah, that's the one sin that one cannot do when dealing with an
Now,
agent. Send it off
well,
before it's cooked.
yeah, but also, if you're going to use the speech recognition software, you do have to reread it,
Yeah,
and you're going to have to clean it up.
yeah. It's like sending you some flour and eggs and going, "See, I made you a cake."
Yeah, pretty much.
I heard something discouraging recently, and I've got this from several different areas. Some agents have said that what they are doing now is, unfortunately, they're having to cater to the buying whims of 25-year-olds in Manhattan, who are now, because of all the downsizing and all the shakeups, are now the ones buying. And they're young. They got their nice shiny MFA, and they sit there. But anybody over 30 isn't going to sell to those people for the most part.
Well, that's been true for pretty much my entire career to a certain extent.
Yeah,
I mean, what Penguin Random House just did is they went to every editor over the 60 and over and offered them a buyout.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and many
Anybody?
of
Oh, you've got experience. Let's get rid of you.
Well, no, by experience, it means you're too expensive.
Yeah,
You've been doing this for 30, 40 years. We can't afford you anymore.
and
We
you know
need
what you're
somebody.
doing, and we don't like that.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
cost too much.
we'll hire you back on a freelance basis so we don't have to pay your salary or your benefits, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's this is the horrible corporate part of
I
publishing.
think you were smart to see how the world was changing and going, I might as well pivot now rather than wait for things to get worse.
Yeah. But as the next generation of editors comes of age, and look, I have nothing against that. I think there was kind of a logjam at the top of, let's face it, older editors. And as a former younger editor myself, you knew you weren't going to get promoted until that person left. And there was no chance. It didn't matter how hard you worked. It didn't matter how many bestsellers you had or how personable you were. Maybe if I was better at playing office politics, which frankly I wasn't because I had no interest in it, maybe I would still be an editor today. But then again, I just would have been offered the buyout. So um, I think in terms of younger editors who are doing the buying now, part of the problem, and it's not the younger editor's fault. Part of the problem is that the corporate companies, the corporate owners, think that the way to success is the youth market. And that was great when like Elvis Presley was coming up,
Yeah.
And since Elvis has been dead for 46 years now, I think we can sort of say, well, maybe not. The baby boomer generation, which I'm sort of the tail end of, is still, as far as I know, the largest generation and still has the most buying power in the marketplace. But publishers don't want to market to a bunch of old farts like us. So, and I just include you just for,
No,
I don't want to
please.
stand,
No, you're absolutely correct
I
because
don't want to stand here alone as an old fart. I need
the
company.
books that I see that they're pushing are not the ones I want to read.
Yeah, yeah. So I think publishing goes through these wild gyrations. They'll try to get younger, something will hit, every other company will copy it, they'll drive it into the ground, beat it to death, and then something new will come along. And I've seen this happen in all sorts of genre fiction, from techno thrillers, horror, vampire novels, chick lit, you name it. There's a genre or a variation. Romance is the only one that it seems to be
Bigfoot
involved.
porn.
I haven't seen that one.
Yes, one woman back years ago, about 10 years ago, was making a lot of money doing Bigfoot porn, just turning them out as ebooks and just smashing them out there.
Okay.
I
I
yeah,
will.
I know. By your third one, haven't you said what can be said? I don't know. I never read one.
I'm not going into that cave. I'll tell you
Exactly.
that.
Yeah. So is there any benefit to not revealing your age as a writer, or they just gonna figure it out? Do they have an age bias if you say over 50, over?
No, I don't think so. But I also think, why does it matter? Why would you even put that in your pitch letter?
Yeah,
Who
you
cares?
wouldn't in a pitch, but yeah, some people are like, wait till they ask and then be truthful.
Yeah. And it also depends what you're writing, right? If you're writing nonfiction and you're writing um, something that you are an expert on, let's say you're, an infectious disease specialist and you're working for the CDC, and you were, you know, second in command under Dr. Fauci, but you're 70 years old. You're really smart. You know what you're talking about. Well, everybody knows that you're going to be 70 years old, but that's okay. If you're writing a book about, I don't know, a tween girl, and you're a 70-year-old guy, not so
A
okay.
little sketchy
Still
to
sketchy,
start.
maybe a lot sketchy.
Okay, we've got. I knew this would happen. You've got tons of people asking questions here. So there's David Goldstein, who self-published a novella at the end of a short collection. He's turned it into a much larger novel, over 100,000 words, and he's saying, will this cause him issues when he's sending it to publishers because the book sold almost no copies? I think, from my experience, yes. They go by track record. And if you say, oh, I did this, even if it's a portion, but it didn't sell, they go, not interested. Correct me if
Well,
I'm wrong.
I think you're right. The easy solution: use a different title.
Right.
Publisher's
And
not going to
if
know.
it's that changed, I think
Yeah,
if you published a portion of it, do you really need to disclose that?
no, I
There you
wouldn't.
go. All right, David, good answer for you. Change the title, change it around, and
And it's all
okay.
yours.
Brian says, is it possible to get a literary agent if you have an independently published book?
It's really difficult to get an agent, whether you do or not. I think a lot of it depends on, does the agent like your writing? Does the agent feel that you've hit that target of the marketplace? And, I've always thought it was better to not have the self-published book, because there's nothing negative to overcome. I think it's easier to get an unpublished author a deal than it is an author with a checkered track record. I mean, I worked with guys who had been New York Times bestsellers 10, 20 years ago. You can't even get them a cup of coffee anymore. Nobody, because it's so long ago and because their books in between their bestsellers and now didn't perform well. It's almost as if, they have the evil eye on them. Nobody wants to touch them with a 10-foot pole. It's sad. They're still good writers.
Yeah. We have one terrific exception here, Chris Philbrook, who's an excellent writer. He's been a guest here. He got a literary agent after self-pubbing about a dozen books, but
Wow.
I would call him the exception.
Yes. There are some people who self-publish and do very, very well with it, but the example I always like to use is 50 Shades of Grey. And
Oh, please.
well, no.
I know, I
I'm not
know, but
talking about the prurient subject matter. I'm talking about, there was an article, I forgot the author's name, but there was an article I read in the New York Times stating that she and her husband maxed out their credit cards and put $100,000 into a marketing effort for that book. Wow. That is really gutsy to do something like that. Because if it didn't work, you're out 100 grand,
yep.
but it worked beautifully. And she sold a ton of books and got picked up by a publisher and wrote sequels and has had movies made. So she placed an enormous all-in bet on herself, and it paid off.
Good. So we have Jack, who's written a novel about Hurricane Katrina. Is it too late to query publishers about that? I mean, the anniversary is in 2025. Has time flown? Do they Is it possible to get one out for the anniversary? Is nobody interested anymore? What's the scoop on that? I know.
I think it's possible to get one out for the anniversary. I think if the author has a new take on the story or is examining it in a way that, other novels haven't. I mean, you can't really put it in the same category as nonfiction, because nonfiction is news report, right? So yeah, we all saw stuff on TV. We all read the news reports. We all read about it in the newspaper. Some of us have read nonfiction books about it. But if a novel is, showing us something new and different, why not?
Okay. For aspiring writers of nonfiction, what are the pros and cons of using a literary agent for nonfiction? And what are the best sources for identifying agents? I would say, what,
Well,
Jeff Herman's?
oh yeah, Jeff Herman's, absolutely. And the other best source is going to the acknowledgement pages of books that you like that are similar, because the authors often thank their agents because we tell them to. The pros and cons of having an agent, I don't see any cons. I only see pros. An agent's going to help you put together a really first-rate proposal, or a good agent will anyway. And an agent will have the contacts to put that proposal in the most likely hands of people who are going to buy that book. So, what are the cons of having an agent there? Okay, you're going to give somebody 15%, but somebody who's an expert, and hiring them to do their job, and they don't get paid if that book doesn't sell, what's the downside?
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, we've got a tough one here from Joseph. Children's fantasy books, which are published in Sweden. And literary agents are the thing over there. Now he's unsure how to connect with an American publisher because it is a translation. And I'm sure he can do the English version, but since the book has a provenance, how should he go about that?
Well, I guess the first question is whether or not, and I think I already know the answer, whether or not the Swedish publisher controls US rights, or North American or world rights in all languages. If they do, that publisher is going to have a subsidiary rights director. And if they don't, you're going to need somebody, an agent maybe, who handles translation rights. There are probably translation specialists or rights people who will do translations. That's not something that I work with.
Right. Christine Catherine Rush writes about that. She says it is possible, but you got to do some digging. You got to do some homework on this.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Here's one anonymous. Do you have any tips for getting a memoir published?
Lead a very interesting life and be able to write about it beautifully. I know that's kind of a smug answer, but let's face it, we're all the stars of our own movies, right? Now, Dale, you've hung out with me at Crime Bank, and you know that I could tell some good stories about what I've done in publishing.
Oh yeah.
I could leave people laughing, and I've had people come up to me and they say, man, those stories are great. You should write a book about that. And I would say to them as my stock answer, yeah, you know who's going to buy that book? You people sitting at this table, and maybe a few people at the next table. It's too much inside baseball, and I don't think it's that interesting.
And do you really want to reveal some secrets? And you're not going to really dish dirt because you're not that type of person. So
I don't have dirt to dish. I lived a clean life, Dale.
Make stuff up. I mean,
now Michael Korda wrote a great memoir about publishing called.
Not Power, was it?
No, it's called Another Life, I think.
Huh.
And I aside from the fact that he's a great writer, he was writing about people that I knew and worked with, so I thought that was pretty cool. But memoir is maybe the toughest of all the nonfiction categories to
that and
sell.
Poetry.
Well, I don't even touch poetry because I might as well just beat my head in with the stapler. So I think the problem is that, and this really goes for the entire industry, it's so subjective. What one person thinks is great, another person might look at and say, that's why I really have given up trying to sell comedy or humorous novels, because comedy is so subjective. And I could be falling off my chair laughing, and then I'll get rejected by half a dozen editors. They're like, yeah, we didn't think this was funny. So
Yeah.
the same will hold true for memoir. Oh, this is really interesting, and the market's not big enough to say, oh, you know what? Here,
I would assume that unless you're Frank McCourt, the market would be very small.
Yes.
I heard a statistic that said about half of all books published don't sell more than a couple dozen copies. There. Thank you.
That is the Jeff Herman's guide. This is.
Yeah, I used to use that.
Yeah, the 28th edition. There is an interview with me in there. So.
Oh, excellent. There you go.
You will be buying my incredible wisdom and
reap all the benefits from it.
Pithy comments. Yeah, it's memoir's tough.
Yeah. Okay. Identifying. Okay. So from Emily, if she has an idea for nonfiction futuristic, okay. Do I collect all the history first, or do I start writing and then add in specifics from history? Hold on, if it's history, how is it futuristic? Emily, I don't think we're really sure how to answer that one.
If she's talking about speculative,
but
fiction or alternate history, like Harry Turtledove used to write.
Yeah.
Like
has he given that up?
The Civil War. You do your research and then project out into your future, I guess.
Yeah. Julian says, in the past, no one would touch anything that had been previously published. But if somebody has, I think we answered this. Would an agent not consider them? It's like, it depends. The answer is, it depends.
It depends. If you've sold 25,000 copies, sold, not given away, sold, agents will pay attention.
Here's a question on how do I trust sending an outline without them copying the base of the story? Emily, nobody's going to copy. Ideas are not copyrightable, first of all. Nobody cares because there's a million of them out there. So don't worry if you send, especially an outline, to somebody that they're going to copy the story. That's just not going to happen. Sorry, I took your thunder away there, Doug, because I couldn't
have put it better.
You probably would have, and more entertainingly. How healthy is the publishing industry in 2023?
Well,
is it the sick old man of Manhattan, or what?
I got into publishing 1986, and I remember an article, it was either in the Times or the Wall Street Journal.
Is publishing dead?
Publishing is dead. So it is
every year the articles come out.
Yes, the fabulous invalid, it's going to morph, it's going to change.
It's like a zombie, it just can't be killed. It's great.
You can't kill it. But as like, for instance, we're having a generational change editorially, but you know what? Some of those editors are going to end up moving to other houses. Some of them are going to become agents. Some will become freelance editors. New editors are going to come up. If the big publishers miss stuff, little publishers will come in to fill in the cracks. I think
the smaller houses, to your point, are going to do much better because the big ones are international conglomerates.
Yes.
And they just care about profit. They're not really caring about the American book market unless it makes them money. So I think there's an opportunity for these smaller publishers to come back in like they were. They used to be dozens, if not hundreds of imprints, but much smaller.
Well, all those imprints used to be independent companies run by the founders.
Gobbled up.
And then as they got older and died off, the families sold. So if you were to go down sort of the tree of, let's pick, Random House. Well, what's in Random House? There was Random House. It was founded by Bennett Cerf, and then there was Knopf, which was Alfred A. Knopf, all separate companies. There was Putnam, which was, George Putnam, who was married to Amelia Earhart. And that company goes back, I think, to like the 1850s. And these all got bought up over time and conglomerated and mashed together into publishing groups. So there's the Crown Group, there's the Bantam Ballantine Dell Group, there's the Knopf Doubleday Group, et cetera, and so forth. It's very confusing. Don't even try to tell the player.
Yeah, don't go there. Just don't go there. Okay, do you have a staff or do you handle everything yourself?
You're looking at my staff.
Oh boy. What's the help like? And what's the boss like?
Boss is such a jerk. God, what a taskmaster.
That's what I say about my industry. I go, I only have to deal with one jerk.
I have had a wonderful summer intern this year after not having one during the pandemic, or two or three actually. When I was in Brooklyn, I because it's in New York, it was easy to get interns, and they would come to the office, which was my house or my apartment, and they would sit 2-3 days a week, and we'd go through stuff, and I teach them what the business is all about. So this is my first virtual assistant, and we do Zoom calls, and we do phone check-ins every couple of days. And she's going to be a junior at Colgate, and she's really terrific. She's learned a lot about how to read a manuscript, how to write a report.
Oh, I can imagine. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So today we started working on royalty statements. I said, before you leave, I have to get you to the boring stuff.
I heard nobody can read those.
I can.
Well, you probably write a better one than most places. So we have one from Brian, and I think I can answer this one too. He gets calls since independently publishing a self-help book, and he gets calls from people who want me to pay $2,500. So yeah, Brian, money flows to the writer, not from. It is a scam. Do not accept anything from them, especially since they give you a different name and try again. No. Anybody contacting you like that is not your friend. They're trying to get money from you, and there's plenty of them out there. Okay, so, Rosamund says self-published 2 children's books. And yeah, she's getting contacted too by people saying, we can put you with a major publisher. Nope. Just the publishers do not use these squeezy outfits to find new books, as she puts it. Nancy, how important are query letters? Well, yeah, and should a manuscript be polished before beginning to write the query letter? Take it away. It's an easy one. A little toss-up for you.
Query letters are really important. And if you have a great query letter with an unpublished manuscript, what you're going to do is get interest from agents, and then you're not going to have something that's ready to send to them. So what's the point? An agent's going to forget about it 6 months or a year or 2 years from now. Make your manuscript polished and great and bright and shiny and clean and have that new car smell. And then, if you could write a great manuscript, it's not that hard to write a great query letter. The hard thing is to keep it to 1 page. That's really a craft. It's not art. This is just work and editing, self-editing, cutting.
And folks, there's whole books on how to do this. Do your homework. Read the books. Read online. Janet Reed has the Query Shark, where you can find out about what she thinks about bad query letters and how you can improve them and avoid getting ripped to pieces.
Yeah. A bad query letter is going to kill you.
Okay. So Emily's written a children's book and wants help getting someone to do the graphics. That again, you've got to research that on your own. Do you have anything?
I have an even better answer than that. The better answer is that publishers only want the text. If they want the book, they will find the artist and they will match the artist with the text.
Excellent. So we have someone who completed a YA novel that sold a handful of copies. And is there a publisher agent who would consider it? No. Handful of copies? No. They don't care. They don't care how many people said it was nice. They care about the bottom line, which is how many copies did it sell?
Yeah. This is a business.
Yeah.
Not a charity.
And they want to make money. They don't care if it's something that people like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, look, in my career as an editor, we always said we want our books to sell. We don't care if anyone reads them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Joseph, today's time, what would be the best way to break into getting published or working in the publishing field? I interned as editor-in-chief for an online men's magazine.
Well, if you really want to break into the publishing field, it used to be that you needed to be in New York City. Now with the post-pandemic fragmented workplace, I guess you could work anywhere. There are tons of smaller publishers. If you're talking about wanting to make a living wage from publishing,
Don't, just don't.
if you're going to come in as a young person right out of college and you're going to live, 3 people to a 1-bedroom apartment, it's doable. If you're if you're 35 and you're looking to make a career change, unless you're going to come in at a mid-level, nobody's going to hire a 35-year-old assistant, at whatever the going rate is for,
Oh wait,
peanuts.
Robert De Niro did a movie about that,
Yeah, that's wholly unrealistic, and that's why it's a movie. So, it can be done. The business is not as New York centric as it was. It's still pretty, but if people are only in the office 1-2 days a week, that critical mass of needing to be in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area maybe is not as important. I know a woman who's a freelance editor or an editor at large with Berkeley. She lives in Texas. So, but she had already been in-house. So, I got in when I was 24.
Yes, and get out at the right time.
Well,
Sally's got a question again. I think I can answer it. What's a good way to entice agents to want to read your work? A great query letter.
And bribes.
And,
no, I'm just
well,
kidding.
no, a great query letter. I've sat in and listened to so many pitches to so many agents, and it's like you have to have something that they think they can sell, that they get excited about. You have to hook them, and that's what the query is all about. The query is only to get them to at least read a partial.
Yeah,
and if they like that partial, then they'll talk to you further.
When I'm writing a query letter or pitch letter to a publisher, it's the same thing. And I tell my authors, it's like the old Madison Avenue thing. You're selling the sizzle, not the steak. You want people to get so excited about what's going to be in this book, what it could have. And the pitch letter is not the place for the details. That's the manuscript.
Yeah. Oh, what's the state of historical mystery as a genre? Meredith says, asking for a friend.
Right. I think it's fine. It depends, again, what you're going to write. Could you have a historical mystery can take place over the entirety?
Absolutely. And I think I know so many people from the Sisters in Crime and mystery writers who do nothing but, and they have very healthy careers.
Yeah.
So as long as it's good, it's a perfectly viable genre. Okay. Okay. Melody, first children's book accepted by a publisher, scheduled for 2024. Her second submission is under review. Same people. Should she get an agent?
Depends who the publisher is.
And she was told she needs to have 3 books to show them, and currently she doesn't. So she's worried, does she have the right number? Is it the time to grab an agent? I mean, what are you going to do here?
Well, I had a really interesting experience not too long ago. An author contacted me, said she had an offer from a publisher, and through a mutual friend said, oh, so-and-so recommended you as an agent. I'm like, great, I'll be glad to help you out. She was lovely and wonderful. And then I looked at the contract, and it was from a really small publisher that I'd never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a distributor. I want to say it was Simon & Schuster, might have been Penguin Random House. One of the big 5 was the distributor. for this company. Their contract was so terrible. So I started to negotiate. I'm not talking about the advance. I didn't even touch the money because they'd already settled on that, but all the clauses. And it got to the point where the small publisher couldn't deal with dealing with an agent. And they basically told her, if you ditch your agent, we'll publish your book.
And in that case, run.
Never
Run.
come across that. Yeah.
If they are unwilling to bend on a terrible contract, everybody listening, run like hell.
Yeah.
Because they are doing it to benefit themselves, and that contract can lock you in and destroy all your future work. They can have rights to everything, and you have nothing.
The thing about having an agent negotiating a contract is agents know what is usual and customary, because we've been doing this, if you have an experienced agent, we've been doing it for a while. So I used to negotiate contracts for the publishing companies. Now I negotiate contracts for the author. I'm not negotiating against the publishing companies,
right,
but I know exactly where they can bend and where they can't, and what's reasonable and what's not. I have a contract out from another very small true crime publisher, and I want to make this deal, but they're not paying any advance, and they wanted world rights, and they wanted film rights.
And I want a pony.
Yeah, and a big all-day lollipop. And I said, no, I can't.
Well, somebody's a sucker here.
Yeah, I'm not giving you foreign. You can have North American rights, and we're retaining the film rights. And that's just that. It's whoa, I've never heard of an author keeping the film rights. And I'm like, well, you're not experienced.
Yeah, really. Yeah, because everybody is so desperate to get signed that they'll sign anything. And it's not until later that they realize. I've heard so many horror stories, and so many writers have warned about this. Folks, read your contract. Get it vetted by somebody, an IP attorney who knows what the hell they're doing, or someone like Doug. Please do not get taken. Contracts are forever.
Yeah, you can.
But they would never do that. Lawyer. Yeah, but what if what if they sell to somebody else? The next guy will do that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you can hire a publishing lawyer to review a contract. It's going to cost you a few bucks, but you're not going to get taken.
Some of the professional organizations too will review your contracts for you, like Science Fiction Writers of America, and I think some others also will take a look at your contract, make sure you're not getting taken to the cleaners.
Good point.
Okay. Okay, Lori, congratulations. Fairly recently had a manuscript accepted by a New York-based literary agent who sent a pitch to 15 New York-based houses with an endorsement by a well-known author. No bites. No surprise, but no. My year with the agent is up. What advice would you give that she could do after a year and 15 tries with something good and a good shot? Is it time to move on, go for the next 15? What do you do?
I think you have to do a sort of deeper dive into the rejections, and you have to see why it's being rejected, because you can get rejections that are all over the place, but if you're starting to see a pattern, this doesn't hit the market, we don't think we could sell enough copies. Well, that's not necessarily the agent's fault. That's the book that you wrote. If you're getting rejections, I didn't like the voice, I didn't like the writing, that's the writer's fault. If the rejections are, well, this isn't the kind of book that I edit, then the agent sent it to the wrong people. So, 15 is a decent number, but I don't know what kind of book it was. I can put together a submission list that might be 25. Now, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to sell it either. It's very, very difficult. You're not only competing with all of the authors who are on multiple book contracts and who are repeat authors, you're competing with every brand new author out there, authors who are trying to change houses, authors who are writing under pseudonyms, because their career died under their real name. So the competition is absolutely fierce, and publishers can just, it used to be at some houses, well, we're cheap, so we're going to buy something that's flawed, but that we can fix because
Right.
we can get it for a song. And now everybody wants it to be perfect.
Yep.
I tell some clients who I don't take, or some potential clients who I don't take on, it takes just as much time and effort for me to sell a book for $1,000 as it does for $100,000.
Mm.
If the potential is not there for me, I'm not going to take it on because I'm not going to kill myself for, what's the commission on $1,000? It's $150.
Right. So 150 hours for $150. Right.
Yeah, it's not worth my while, yet when I took Jeff Shara, to go back to him, from Ballantine to St. Martin's Press, he called me on a Monday and he's like, I think I want to, move publishers. We had a deal by Thursday. I sent out 4 emails. We did 3 phone calls. I think we had 2 Zoom calls, and then I had an offer in hand, within 3.5 days. So it was actually easier to sell a book, made a 2-book deal for a lot of money than, for, like I said, I have this true crime book and we're getting a no advance offer. This is after over 30 tries.
Yeah. We have one from Dean who's nervous about being rejected by an agent. He wants to know how to pitch for original ideas. Again, the query letter, the query letter, the query letter. And yes, you are going to get rejected. Start building those calluses on your psyche right now, Dean. I know Dean is a frequent contributor here, but it's like, you will get rejected. This is a business that thrives upon rejection, and they start with no, and you've got to work from there.
Yeah, it's so easy to get a no. It's so hard to get a yes. And I'll explain that. Let's say I send out a book manuscript, an editor reads it, loves it, and takes it to the editorial meeting. So they're now sitting in either a large conference room where people are physically present, or on a big Zoom meeting with 25, 30, 40 people. So it's all the editors, all the assistants, publisher, the editorial director, their assistants, maybe the head of sales, maybe the head of marketing as well, maybe the head of publicity. So you've got a big group of people. The editor makes his or her pitch, and people comment on that. And people are like, if they say, oh yeah, that sounds really good, I'd like to read some of that. You now have to get second, third, and third reads. And all it takes is one person who are giving second or third reads to say, yeah, I don't see it. I didn't get it.
And the P&S people are like, no, it's not going to sell.
It's done. No. So you need almost a unanimous yes. And even then, it's still up to the discretion of the publisher and the editorial director to say, well, okay, I don't think this is right for us, or, well, we'll make an offer, but keep it under a certain dollar amount, because we're not placing a high bet.
We don't want to risk our jobs for this.
Yeah. So even yes, not the panacea that you think it might be.
Right. Brian has an independently published book through a sketchy hybrid publisher. They are supposed to give me a royalties report, and I haven't got one. What a surprise. Are there any options, such as removing them as a publisher?
Woo. Email them and say, where's my royalty report? That's pretty much all you can do.
Right. And you could, if you want, have an attorney send with a letterhead and say, please submit this as per contract. Again, look at your contract. Does it say that they have to? And again, as Christine Catherine Rush and many others have detailed, taking these people and trying to wring that from them is next to impossible, because they can just sit and drag their heels as much as they want. What are you going to do? You don't have the money to hire an attorney.
Sometimes I almost think it's like a Ponzi scheme that they sit on your royalties for 18 months and you complain, oh, yeah. Oh, here's your royalties. And now some other guy is going to be waiting for 18 months because they just paid the income from his book.
Exactly. Yeah. Jali has published a poetry collection. Should they continue to market or just move on to the next book? Move on to the next book.
Yep.
Always, your next book is the one that sells the last books. So just keep writing and just keep publishing and just keep putting out good material. That's the way to do it. Don't market to death one thing. Don't just keep flogging that dead horse. Get a new horse.
And flog that one, damn
And
it.
flog that one. No. Okay. Here we go. Emily has rechanged her query. So, historical fiction from the 60s versus futuristic to the 2060s. So, do the research first. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get your storyline out, finish the book, and then start querying. Absolutely. Oh, Diane's like, Doug, she really likes you. What genres are you looking for and what target audiences?
Well, that is on the landing page of my website.
There you go.
I do about a mix of 50% fiction and nonfiction. I do.
Yeah, 20 years ago, folks, agents did not put their websites down. They didn't even have them, or they didn't put them down. Now they all do, and they tell you exactly what they're looking for.
So historical fiction, Jeff Shara, his new book, and I have nonfiction. This will be out in October.
Nice.
This is about the Kennedy assassination. By the one of the two surviving Secret Service members who was on the Dallas motorcade.
Oh boy,
it's
all
good,
right.
It's good stuff.
Great, add to my reading list. Thanks a lot, Doug.
But in fiction, I like mysteries, thrillers, and all permutations of those. I know there's been a lot of questions about children's and YA. I don't represent children's and YA.
Folks, target. If somebody does not specifically say they rep something on their site, do not even bother with a query. You're wasting everybody's time. Everybody's
science fiction, and I cannot tell you how many YA science fiction queries I get. I'm like, really?
Okay. No, don't waste time. Here's a good question. Anonymous, again, wrote and published a college textbook in the 90s. Should they mention that when they're finishing a sci-fi novel? No.
Nope,
not at all.
Completely immaterial.
Irrelevant.
Okay.
Doug, how to get an agent? Golly, I say go to the conferences and hang out at the bar. But actually, yeah, I tell people, I say the conferences are where a lot of you do go to hire people. In your day jobs, you're just too busy. But at a conference, you're actually talking to people, listening, and a 30-second pitch while you're having a beer is possible.
Oh yeah, I go to 2 to 3 conferences a year. So this year I've been to Chicago Writers Association, Thriller Fest, and I'm doing the Crime Bake in November. And I don't think I've got any other ones. And I actually got to speak at a Harvard graduate writing program, which was kind of cool. But there were stories at Thriller Fest about people who've been going for 3 or 4 years just to work up the courage to talk to an agent. And then, after they pitched a number of years, got an agent, got a publishing deal. So a lot of this is perseverance.
And conferences will help you. And there's a lot of panels and there's a lot of instruction in how to pitch, how to query, how to pitch, what you need to have done. Folks, go ahead.
Yeah, this is an industry that is actually very good about reaching out to its sources of new material. We want to encourage you to write and write well and to learn how to do it. And if you can't learn how to do it, you're not going to have any success doing it.
Right. Yeah. Larry says, I keep hearing finish your book first. Yes. And Laurie says, what conferences? Laurie, it depends on what your genre is. For the crime and mystery, there is a ton of them. Just again, the internet is your research tool. Use it if you're writing romance, whatever you're writing. Find the conferences, your professional organizations, your local groups, and find out who's doing that. And then you'll have to research those conferences. Okay. I know we're trying to race through, Doug, because we got dozens of questions. So, book about homelessness with photographs. Oh, will publishers automatically decline due to the cost of publishing photos?
It depends what kind of book this is. Is it
About
a
homeless
photo?
people, photos
No,
about
but
homeless people.
is it a, it's, if it's a photo book, you go to a publisher that publishes photo books, and that's the cost of it. I'm not exactly sure who the readership is for a book of homeless people photos. I don't know that's something I really want on my coffee table next to the art book.
I know. It's like, that's going to be a tough sell, but
Yeah.
okay. Diane's back. She says, so if you sold 15 to 25,000 with a prior book, would you be interested in their manuscript? Again, I'm going to say it depends on the query letter. You will
Depends
put
on
that
what
into
the
your
book is.
query letter that you, Robert would like to answer that question. Okay, go take it away, Robert.
No, Dale, sorry about that. I was just marking them finished.
Oh,
But,
okay. Oh, that's what you're doing. Okay, because I keep seeing them disappear. We're trying to get through. We got those, and then we can get to the chat. Whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dale and Doug, let's go for another 15 minutes or so, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Norman's like, I'm reaching to agents for completed YA novels. We've already answered that one, but does he have it? Good advice for getting the attention of a good agent? Yes. Get Jeff Herman's guide, look through the guides, and see who publishes and likes YA. Folks, they've got books on this stuff. They've got the internet. You can do this research to find out who does what. There. Who does this? And yes, you might have to read through it. I did. I spent years going through those things. Okay. I was told by Stephanie. Stephanie says, if we publish on Amazon, no agent will consider you. Is that true?
Well, there's publishing on Amazon, and then there's publishing on
Yeah,
Kindle
47
Direct
North,
Publishing.
Thomas and Mercer.
That's right. If you're published by one of Amazon's own publishing imprints, you bet an agent will touch you. An agent will tackle you before you can leave the room.
Let us assume that they're just saying regular Amazon. Like,
I think they're talking about Kindle Direct
Yeah,
Publishing.
yeah.
Again, if you sell thousands and thousands of books and you get an agent interested, if you could be number one in your genre, I do Westerns. I used to edit them a million years ago, and I still represent a few Western writers as an agent. And I was talking with an editor at Kensington, who publishes the bulk of the Westerns in the marketplace. And he said, hey, I read this guy. He was number one on Amazon, in like the self-published or whatever. And he's really good. You should take a look at him, because if you can represent him, I'll publish him. I won't publish an unagented author because they're just too difficult to deal with to have to teach them everything. So we found this guy's contact info. We talked to him. I read some of his stuff. I'm like, yeah, he is good. And I got him a deal. But that was coming from the editor in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. Oh boy. Having self-published in the past hurt your chances. Again,
Yes.
it depends on how many you've sold. If you've got really stinky books, do a pseudonym and approach them with a good query letter, and ignore those old books, because they're going by track record. If they see that you've got a couple of books that did not sell, they are reluctant to go, well, why would he be any different with this one, especially after practice? So change your name, send a good query. Sorry, I know we're trying to get through. Would it be, Rosamond, would it be prudent to send Scholastic Books a copy of my books to see if they might be interested? Well, go to the Scholastic website and send them a query, Rosamond.
Chances are they're going to say we only deal with agents.
Yep. Are there genres people want that aren't crime horror?
Well, romance.
Yeah,
romance, and
walk into a bookstore and, oh my God, those books are getting published. Somebody's got to do them. Yes, crime and mystery are popular, and they do tend to have a better track record than a regular literary novel for sales. But all of these books that get published had somebody behind them. So,
romance, science fiction.
Here's a good one. Does a history of publishing short stories help when looking to publish a novel? And how
Nope.
difficult is a short story collection? I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you take it.
I think I could answer that in 2 words. Impossible.
Thank you. Publishers do not like short story collections, and even from the most famous, they do it reluctantly as a favor if everything else is sold. But no, it's an entirely different animal, and they don't sell.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a dozen stories that were published in the New Yorker, yeah, you might be able to get a collection.
Yeah, if you're the second coming of Salts, oh geez, Salinger, then yeah, but otherwise no. Nope. Anonymous says, I sold 300 copies. Would a literary agent be interested in picking this up? No. I'm sorry, folks. This is harsh, but these are the answers. What are the elements of a great opening sentence in a novel? One that makes you want to read the next one.
All true.
I know.
All true.
Some of these are like, oh, okay. So here's Chris. Chris has got a good one. He's had his stuff. Chris is the guy who's very successful, doing his own, had a literary agent, moving on. He's had stuff in development in Hollywood for years. And the development teams get hired away to other projects and his deals expire. So what's the best route to find and query agents that specialize in film work?
There are film agents.
Yeah.
Most literary agents work with a Hollywood co-agent or sub-agent. I do. I do not.
Sub-rights, yep.
I do not go to Hollywood and talk to like the studio head at MGM and say, listen, pal, I got a great manuscript for you. It'll make a great movie. It doesn't work that. It's a totally different business with a totally different set of rules. And they're all on strike now anyway, so nobody's buying anything. But if you have I use a book to film guy, they're out there. They could be at large agencies, they could be at small agencies, but you can also vet them, because they could hang out a shingle and not have sold anything. But you have to find out what their projects are that they've done, writers they've worked with, get recommendations, talk to these writers. Oh, Joe was the best. He got me a deal at Paramount and changed my life. Or this guy's a bum. He never did anything. So,
and Chris, I was just at the 603 conference up in New Hampshire, up in your neck of the woods, and they had a very good agent there who does film and TV work, very high profile person. So sometimes in your own backyard, there's the answer right there. Julie, I'm sorry if I sounded a little insulting, but sometimes the questions are like, oh man, we answer them over and over and over. It's kind of like asking a writer, where do you get your ideas? And sometimes it's just easy to toss something off. I'm sorry, that may sound a little harsh. The truth is the realities of publishing are harsh. And that's what we're trying to do, is give people a level of honesty so that they're not chasing down these paths where they're just going to be discouraged after a lot of rejection, after a lot of disappointment and sadness. If we can head that off and send people in the right direction, that's kind of where we're trying to go here. Are self-help books at a disadvantage for a traditional publisher? Many book awards admit self-help books as a category.
Well, if you are an expert in a particular field that you're writing a self-help book about, a publisher could be interested in that. If you're writing a book about sleep and you're the head of the sleep study center at Cornell Medical Center, yeah, great. If you're writing about, I don't know, overhauling a Chevy small block engine and you're a NASCAR pit crew chief, great. But if you're writing a self-help book and you don't have any credentials, publisher's not going to be interested. That's where you need to have what they call a marketing platform, which is very important in nonfiction. Not, I think, as important in fiction.
Okay. Sally says Voyage Media in LA is an incubator for film writers. So Chris, Voyage Media in LA. And now we're going to try to get to some other ones of these. I know people have been very patient. And joining, how do I get an agent? Yep. Coming. What is the one thing agents look for in a book when bringing on a client?
Well, it's something that we think we can sell.
Yep.
And that could be anything. No, it could be beautiful writing. It could be a great story. It could be a great character. Usually you want all three of those. I think the things that get books rejected, both by agents and by publishers, the main reasons are great story, can't write. The prose is just bad, tedious, or great characters, but man, nothing happens. There's just no action. And I don't mean, like explosions and car chases type of action, but you can't just have people sitting in a room talking.
No arc.
Well, yeah, you need a story arc, you need character arcs. I don't like those kind of books. I guess there are people who do. Well, no, seriously.
No, I know. I've got the same thing. I'm like, these stories that nothing happens, and I'm like,
Yeah. So I tend to. That's why I think I tend to gravitate more towards mysteries and thrillers, or historical fiction, because things do happen. So again, I think it's what catches your eye and makes you think, this is new, this is different, I haven't seen this before, this is really well done. For instance, there was, oh God, I'm going to try to remember the name of this book. There was a book published a few years back that won the Pulitzer Prize, and it was about, it was written by a Vietnamese American. And it was about the Vietnam War, and most publishers won't touch the Vietnam War with a 10-foot pole. It's just death to sales. But this one was not only, the writing was wonderful, it was funny, it had a twist that was different. The main character was Vietnamese, who was a spy for North Vietnam, and he's with the South Vietnam Command. So he gets evacuated and ends up in Los Angeles. But meanwhile, he's still working for the North Vietnamese. And he's like, well, no, I'm living in Los Angeles. I'm working in a restaurant. What? We want you to keep an eye on the expat community. And he ends up on this sort of like Rambo-like raid with these guys who go back to Vietnam thinking they're going to overthrow.
Oh my God.
Government. And he ends up getting captured and tossed in a re-education camp. And he finds out, and he's tortured, and he's, has to, beat the Westernism out of him because he's been hanging around with all these Americans.
Right.
And it turns out that the guy who's running the camp and who's putting him through all of this is his childhood best friend. So things happen. Big twist, great. Oh God, what's the name of it? I could see the cover.
That's okay. We'll look it up. We'll go to the Google Mobile after this.
Yeah, I think the author's name is Viet, which is kind of funny. Viet Nguyen, and it's spelled Nguyen.
Right.
Viet Vin Nguyen, something like that.
We'll find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are agents the one who
The
helped?
Sympathizer. Yes, that's it. The Sympathizer. Great book.
The Sympathizer. Good. Are agents the ones who help find an editor, or does the editor come first? Here's a good one.
Usually agents find the editor, but since again, I've had relationships with editors over my whole publishing career, sometimes I'll get calls like this guy from Kensington saying, hey, I want you to represent this guy, and then I'll sign him up. Or other editors call me up and say, I need a book on so-and-so. Do you have anybody? I get calls from other agents. I just signed this client, but he needs a co-writer. Do you have anybody? I got a couple of those calls recently, and we'll see how they go. It's you never know where stuff's going to come at you. It's coming at you from all.
I will caution people, though, there are some unscrupulous people who will send you to their book doctor, which is their associated person. They're going to try to scam you out of money. Maybe if you go to this person and spend a couple grand, maybe I'll take you on. Beware of them. Like Doug says, check the background of these people. Check who else they've represented and do your research. Don't get taken. There's a lot of people out there looking to get money out of desperate writers.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I'm in a situation now where I'm reading a manuscript. It's a great story, and the writing needs help. So I'm I want to take this on. And I know that the writer isn't going to make it any better because I've seen like 3 drafts of this already. So do I send her to a freelance editor, which she's going to have to pay for? But I don't get any of that. This is not like a kickback situation. I can recommend her people I've worked with over the years.
Right, because you are not connected with them. You're not directly benefiting.
I have no financial connection to them. Or do I put her in touch with a co-writer? I think the freelance editor is the better way to go. And I don't know how she's going to react to that. She might not want to do it. She might not want to spend the money. But I don't think I could sell it as is. And I don't have the time myself to sit there and do a really in-depth line-by-line edit. And that's what it would be.
Yep. About how long are proposals these days? So sample contents, bio, marketing ideas, career, yada, yada.
I think the sweet spot is anywhere between like 45 and 65 pages. I've seen proposals run over 100, 120. It depends what you have to work with. I have one that I'm working with now that the author sent me, and it was like 160 pages long. And I said, cut. Your chapter synopses, there's 24 chapters with 40 pages long. I said, give me half a page at most. Maybe your chapter synopsis should run about 12 pages. He couldn't do it. So now I'm going through it. I'm slashing and burning this thing. The sample chapters are good. I said, you have to add marketing section. You have to add comp titles. Your about the author thing needs to be moved here, and we're going to get it, but it's a process. Shorter is better because attention spans are pretty short.
Yeah, we're getting near the end. And I know Robert's going to want to shut this off. But folks, I also got to say, be careful, because one very depressing thing recently is that if you're not selling thousands and thousands, you can still be dropped by a publisher. People who are winning awards, people who are superb writers, who have a track record, are still being dropped by publishers because their numbers dip below X on the bottom line that the publisher had for wanting to sell. And I mean, these are people that are hardworking, that are great writers, that are winning awards and getting dropped unceremoniously.
You're talking about one of my authors, aren't you?
We could discuss names afterwards, but I went down to Malice Domestic and a couple of people, and I was just, my jaw.
Oh yeah, you met her at Malice. I saw a photograph of the two of you together.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm just shocked.
Oh yeah, but you know what? I sold her series.
Nice.
I sold that series to a new publisher.
Oh, that's good, because I heard that was difficult, trying to resell a series that has been dropped by somebody.
But that's how good I am. See?
Damn it, that is awesome. Now everybody's gonna query you here. Oh, what's one book that you agented that got you really excited besides everything by Jeff Sherratt?
Let me pull one off the shelf here. Here's a cheery little title.
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh. So Carrie Rawson is the daughter of Dennis Rader, who is the serial killer known as BTK.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I had done a book about the BTK case when I was an editor at Harper Collins. And about 10 years later, maybe not that long, maybe it was like 7 years later, I got an email from one of the authors. It was 4 journalists for the Wichita Eagle in Kansas. And he said, hey, I want you to see this article that I just wrote. And it was an interview with Carrie. Carrie hadn't spoken since her father was arrested. I mean, she hadn't spoken to the press. She spoke. And I read the article. It was terrific. And I said, this should be a book. And he said, I'll put you in touch with her. And, so I've been working with her now for about, 8 years or so. And when I took this around to all the big New York publishers, and this is a good publishing parable, they all turned it down because they said, oh yeah, we all know about the BTK case. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. She and her family were victims. Everything that she knew to be her life was a lie. Her entire life was a lie. And she had very bad post-traumatic stress disorder, and
I
as
can
you can
imagine.
imagine, yeah, and cut off, any relationship with her father. So finally, there was, what we realized was that there was a religious, spiritual angle to this book. So I sent it to Thomas Nelson. Whoops, where is? Can you read that? Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Thomas Nelson is a Christian imprint of Harper Collins, and they were based in Nashville. And they gave us a decent advance. And as the book was happening, I was talking to the editor, and I said, I think this, and I always thought this from the beginning. I said, I think this book has New York Times bestseller potential, and an editor and an agent, part of our job is to manage expectations. We don't want you getting too carried away. And she's like, well, I don't know, maybe we'll see. She didn't want to really commit to anything. And the book came out, and I talked to her and I said, so what are we looking at for sales for the first week on sale? And she told me, I said, really? It was like 3,000 copies. And I said, I think that could put us on the Times list.
Oh, yeah. In the first week? Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And it not only put us in the Times list, Kerry got the cover of People magazine. She was on Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz. She was mentioned on Good Morning America and The View. She was on Canada's top morning show. She was #1 on the Toronto Globe and Mail bestseller list. And that was just sort of mind-blowing. And she came in to do an interview at ABC. So I got to meet her in person for the first time because, she was living in Michigan at the time. And we had never met in person. We just spoke on the phone. So, this is, there's a question. Who is this? This is Kerry Rawson, KerriRawson. And the book is A Serial Killer's Daughter. So Kerry has now morphed herself into becoming a victim's advocate. So this recent case on Long Island, the Gilgo Beach murders, married guy, wife, 2 kids, and she, they were interviewing her on television about what is this family going through? It. She knows because she went through it. She said, well, right now they're all in shock, so she's working on a second book, and she's an amazing person with an amazing story to tell, and she told it beautifully.
That's fantastic. Doug, unfortunately, we are at the end of our time, but I think given the number of questions, we've still got more questions. We're going to have you on at some point in the future. Would you be willing to come back at some point?
Absolutely. Glad to.
Great. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. And folks, thank you so much. I know some people typed stuff in that we'd already answered, but I apologize for that. But I hope we got to as many people as we possibly could. And you've got a good impression of what the situation's like now, what the landscape is. So do your homework, find out who's publishing what you're writing, and polish that query letter and query away. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Doug.
So folks, I'm sorry to step on you, Doug, there. So folks, let's give Doug and Dale a big virtual round of applause for a great evening. Folks, look for an email from me tomorrow with the feedback survey, with this recording and with information about some other upcoming programs. This group meets again in, only 3 weeks. We're not giving you much time. We'll be getting advice from author Adeline Ellenberg on Monday, August 21st at 7 o'clock via Zoom. Adeline works as an attorney, but on the side, she writes legal thrillers. So very much looking forward to this one.
I will just say one thing. Now, you've heard of Aaron Brockovich, who made a company pay for poisoning a town. Adeline saved a town from being poisoned. So you're going to want to tune in for that one and hear that story.
There you go. Nice tease, Dale. So folks, look for that email from me tomorrow. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. Thanks again, Dale. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Dale.